Thank you, Lourenço, for the story. And this morning, I decided to talk to you about Christmas. It's been a while since I last preached about Christmas, and I decided that the title for today's sermon is The Truth About Christmas, or The Unveiled Truth. What people don't want you to know, just to get more attention. The birth of a baby is, most of the time, one of the most remarkable moments in people's lives. I can tell you in detail the day when Bella was born. Number one, because it hasn't been so long ago. It was a year ago. But I'm pretty sure that I will never forget those moments. We expected her to be born 5 weeks later. But all of a sudden, the night of November 16, Eleni woke me up crying and yelling, my water broke, she isn't ready yet, and she was crying. I had no idea what was going on, because I was sleeping. And I woke up, no, everything is fine, don't worry. I had no idea what I was talking about, but I was trying to calm her down and trying to figure out what was going on. But I can tell you what I felt, what happened in the hospital. The first time I held her in my arms, it was magical. And parents, you understand what I'm saying. It was magical. And that night, when I first held her in my arms and the nurses left the apartment, I dedicated her to the Lord. And it's been quite a journey. And I was Googling last week, and I found out that specialists say that the most reported birth in modern history was Prince William's birth in 1982. I wasn't born yet, but you may remember the day. Lady Di was a pop star. People loved her. And the royal family had never been so present in the news before like those days. And specialists say that after this event, when Prince William was born, this event marked the beginning of a new generation for the British family when they became more prominent in the news. Number one, because, of course, they are the royal family, the British family, royal British family. And number two, because Princess Diana was very popular. So wherever she was, the TV channels were there covering whatever she was doing. And as I wrote this sermon, I was thinking how different it would be the first hours and day of babies if we could some way envision what they would do and be in the future. Let me give you one example. How would Martin Luther King's birth have been? How about Albert Einstein, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and even Adolf Hitler? The births of most of these characters went unnoticed by the people because many of them, or most of them, were from unknown families. They weren't popular. But now, can you imagine how different Mother Teresa's birth would be if people knew the importance she would have in the world's history? I'm pretty sure there will be many people around the place she was delivered. This season we celebrate the birth of the most remarkable baby in history. Christ's ministry and legacy are so unique that the world's history is divided before and after him. His ministry had actually a limited territorial reach, right? He had from south to north about 90 miles, and from west to east maybe 40, 50 miles at most. So if we take the territorial reach into consideration, we can consider Billy Graham as being way more successful than Jesus. But the difference is that even with a very limited territorial reach in his ministry, Jesus had a profound impact on the planet. And here we are, 2,000 years later, talking and preaching about him. What does Christmas mean to you? When you hear the word Christmas, when you celebrate Christmas, when you're with your family, your loved ones on Christmas Eve, what things come to your mind? If you reflect on how you celebrate this season, what meaning does it carry? I'm not a big fan of cliches, but there is one undeniable cliche about Christmas that we've heard at least 3 or 4 times this morning. He is the reason for the season. This is true. Many people wonder if we as Christians should celebrate Christmas. Should we celebrate Christmas? The reason is that, for that question is that the origin of Christmas is pagan. There is no doubt about that. Let me talk to you a little bit about it. Many people actually think that when we decorate trees in our homes or at the church, we are committing a serious offense against God. So, should we celebrate Christmas or not? Let's dive into this subject and learn how we should approach this holiday. So let's talk a little bit about history. We are now in the 4th century Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was slowly approaching to its end. It was almost impossible to keep the power in the hands of the emperor at that time. A new emperor named Constantine came up to the throne, and he was a very, very good politician. And he rapidly realized that if he didn't do anything, he would lose control in a few months, and it would be the end for the Roman Empire. So he thought, I got to do something with that. So he planned a move. We know from our church history that he changed the day from the 7th day to the first day of the week, right? This was only one of his smart moves, because he said, and many people say that this didn't happen actually, it was just a political move, but he said that he had a dream. And in this dream, God presented himself to him and said that through that sign, which was a cross, he would be victorious in the battle. And then it happened. He was victorious with his army. And then when he came back to Rome, he said, you know what? From now on, I am a Christian. And he got baptized. And sometime later, he changed the official religion of Rome from paganism to Christian. The Christians now were free to worship their God, and it was amazing. Everyone was so happy. They probably were thinking, finally God listened to our prayer, and now we are free to worship. However, about 8 years later, he came with a rule. From now on, Sunday is the official day for Christians and pagans to keep. It's a sanctified day. His goal with all these political moves was to mix them up, because there were so many different groups in the Roman Empire that this was bringing many trouble to his rulership. And then he found out that he had to mix these people up a little bit, especially the Christians, because they were growing very, very fast. And then gradually, the pagans, you couldn't see a difference anymore between pagans and Christians. And then he solved the issue. He created what we call syncretism. Let me give you one example. One of the main gods at that time was a god called Mitra. And he was represented by the sun. So when they worshipped on the first day of the week, they were worshiping God Mitra, the god of the sun. And you can see here in this archaeological find, you can see here the god Mitra, and you see something behind his head. It's a sun. It's a symbol of a sun. There's another example here. You can see the sun. So this god represented the sun, and the Romans, the people in the Roman Empire, worshipped him. Now, Constantine wanted to mix up Mitra and Jesus. So you couldn't see changes anymore between, a difference anymore between Christians and pagans. And now, here's one example of what he created. You see here a cross, but this cross is a little different from just a plain, simple cross. You see something behind it. Have you ever seen something like that? Especially in Catholic churches. So this symbol behind the cross is actually a sun. And I could give you many examples. This circle behind the cross that is very common, especially in Catholic countries, is the symbol or the symbolism created by Constantine's political moves. The cross and the sun all together. So we call this syncretism. There's no difference between Christians and pagans anymore. And December 25 is very close to the winter solstice, which is in the North Hemisphere is the shortest day in the whole year. I saw that Jim posted on his Facebook profile last week about that. So this year was December 21st, is that right? December 21, so today's the 23rd, so it was on Thursday, right? So the shortest day of the year was December 21st. So they picked December 25 as the day, and the mythology behind paganism says that Mitra, the god Mitra, was born on December 25. So they worshipped the birth of god Mitra on December 25. So this is how Christmas began. They used to call this day Sol Invictus. And now all of Constantine's efforts worked out because he mixed Christians and pagans. There was no difference between them anymore. And gradually the church chose this day as the day to celebrate Christ's birth. And then now we're here 1800 years later, and we celebrate Christmas till this day. There's no doubt that the origin of December 25 is pagan, Now, as we become aware of that, should we continue to celebrate Christmas? Before I answer this question, let me warn you that there are many more pagan origin things around you than you think. Let me give you a few examples. Did you know that the days of the week are pagan gods? The name of the days of the week? They're pagan gods. Months of the year? Same thing. There are many names that are actually pagan. I can give you 3 or 4 examples. Laura, Denise, Aiden, all these names are from pagan origin. Should people change their names? Should we as Christians pick a new name for the days of the week and for the months? Did you know that the practice, the habit of celebrating birthday is also of pagan origin? Pagans used to do that. They believed that evil spirits got their chance to possess a soul when it went through a major change, like when it turned a year older. And the celebrations were a ritual to ward off these spirits. Should we stop celebrating birthdays? The answer is no. Of course, no. Is it Sunday under curse because people worship a pagan god on that day? Is Sunday under curse because of that? No. Is someone under curse because their name has a pagan origin? No. What truly curses someone's life is choosing to live away from God. What truly curses someone is when this person chooses not to seek God's guidance on a daily basis. This is what truly curses someone's life. Living a selfish life is a curse, not a name of pagan origin. Sin and demonic falsehood are everywhere. The big question is, what is my reason for the season? What is my reason for the season? If it's consumerism and selfishness, I suggest you reconsider some of your decisions. However, if your reason for the season is the birth of Jesus, a grateful heart for the opportunity of salvation through Jesus Christ and His sacrifice on the cross, if you strive to be generous and bless the needy as you share with them the blessings that God has given you, congratulations. You are following Christ's life and example. You are following His words. December 25 is not under curse because people decided to use it in the wrong way in the past. Period. Oh, but on December 23, there are many people worshiping the devil. So what? They are doing that. They made a wrong decision. But their decision is not putting this day under curse. You know what I'm saying? And I took a couple quotes from Ellen White just to expand a little bit more on that. She says, as the 25th of December is observed to commemorate the birth of Christ, as the children have been instructed by precept and example that this was indeed a day of gladness and rejoicing, you will find it a difficult matter to pass over this period without giving it some attention. It can be made to serve a very good purpose. So it pretty much depends on how we approach this day, how we approach the holidays. And there's a second quote I'd like to read with you. She says, the youth should be treated very carefully. They should not be left on Christmas to find their own amusement in vanity and pleasure seeking, in amusements which will be detrimental to their spirituality. Parents can control this matter by turning the minds and the offerings of their children to God and His cause and the salvation of souls. That's it. There's nothing wrong in celebrating Christmas. But it might become something wrong depending on the way you in your household decide to do that. You can give your children nice gifts. But my suggestion is, one new toy comes in, one toy goes out. You go with your child and you will donate one of his toys to someone else. And you will teach your child not only the blessings of Christmas, but also to share with people. We know that this holiday has many traditions. One of them is the nativity scene. And I went to a house of one of our church members this week, and I saw a very nice, beautiful nativity scene right beside the entrance door. It's beautiful. My question is, how did that happen? Do you think that, I mean, how trustworthy is that scene that we usually see in nativity scenes or in drawings and stuff like that? I'd like to study that with you now. If you didn't realize that yet, I'm a very curious person, and I like to dig out history. And when I was thinking what I should preach this morning, I had no doubt that I'd like to spend a few minutes studying that with you. So let's go to the book of Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. And let's see what we can learn from the story that is shared by Matthew. And I want you to pay attention to the description, the details, because we will discuss some of them. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. It says, "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, 'Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him.' When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. 'In Bethlehem in Judea,' they replied, 'for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.'" Verse 7. "Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, 'Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him.' After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route." In verse 16 says, "When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi." Let's study a little bit more about this Magi. Tradition says that they were wise men. Some people say that they were kings. And tradition says that they were 3. But almost all of this is not true. At least we're not certain of that. So number 1, we're not sure how many of them were. Because if you see, the Bible only says magi. That's it. We don't know if it's 2, 3, 5. There's an old Eastern tradition that says that they were 12. So we're not sure. Many people take the conclusion that it was 3 because the number of gifts that it shows here, right? Gold, myrrh, and frankincense. But we don't know how many of there were actually at that time. They took a very long trip to get to Bethlehem. They were most likely coming from Persia, which, without any stops, we're talking about a 1 week, 7-day trip walking. So they probably took a month or more to get there. So it wasn't something immediate. It took them a long time. Now, another thing. The gifts they gave to Jesus were highly expensive. I was searching and I found this little box that is sold somewhere with the 3 gifts that Jesus received at that time. So there's incense or frankincense here, there's gold and myrrh. These gifts, interestingly enough, there are 2 main characteristics. They are easy to sell. Okay? Number 2, these gifts were usually given to the king or to the son or daughter from the king. So when the royalty delivered a baby, people brought these gifts to them. Of course, not anyone, but rich people, because these carried a very high value. And these gifts most likely were responsible to keep Joseph, Mary, and Jesus alive when they had to flee from Judea to Egypt. They probably sold these gifts and had enough money to survive as they traveled to Egypt. We also know that those magi, they didn't believe in the Bible. They actually didn't have a Bible with them. They were from Persia, right? They were astrologers. And as a side note, keep in mind that today there's a difference. There's a clear difference between astrologer or astrology and astronomy. But at that time, both things were the same. So astrologers, they knew about the zodiac? Is that the right way to say? But also about astronomy. Okay? So there was kind of a myth and reality in their science. Okay? So they knew a lot about the stars, but also about the zodiac. And when they saw the star, they knew that was not a common star. There was something special. And let me share with you a possibility, okay? This is not something certain that we can say, yeah, this is what happened. But a few hundred years before, the Jews lived in Babylon, which is very close to Persia. So there's a chance that they got in touch with the writings of Daniel and the prophecies of Daniel about the birth of Jesus Christ, of the Messiah. But what we know for sure is that they had knowledge about the prophecy in Numbers 24:17 of the prophet Balaam. It says, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. He will crush the foreheads of Moab, the skulls of all the people of Sheth. And that's interesting because when you study the writings, the texts, or the manuscripts of people from that time, not only God's people were expecting the Messiah to come, there were manuscripts of many different tribes and peoples saying that something was about to happen by that time. It's very interesting, very interesting. So many different nations were expecting something special to happen at that time. And when they came, what is a little frustrating is that pagans announced to Jews that the Messiah has come. Have you ever thought about that? God is not exclusivist. Salvation is granted to anyone that is willing to surrender their lives to Him. The Jews were not ready, even though they had all the prophecies. Because when they got to the palace, the star brought them to Israel, to Judea. And when they got there, they thought, well, we came to honor the king, the Messiah. So where should we go to find a king? Let's go to the palace. They went to the palace. Who they found? Herod. Okay, we came to see the new king. How do you think Herod thought? How did he feel? How was his reaction? Can you hold on a second? And then he went to the high priest and all the specialists, the teachers of the law. He said, what is this all about? He's talking about a king, a Messiah. Are they right? And probably at that moment they said, yeah, because the prophecy says this, this, and that. There's this prophecy, that other prophecy. And where is this Messiah supposed to be born? And they said, in Bethlehem. And then Herod came back to them, okay, hey, yes, we are actually anxious about the come of the new king. So he wasn't born here. He actually is being born in Bethlehem. But please go and find him. And when you find him, please tell me where he is, because I'm so looking forward to find him and pay honor to him. Of course not. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to kill the Messiah. And then they went to Bethlehem. The star appeared once again and brought them to the right place. But now, there's another thing that I'd like to share with you. The story doesn't say, and this is another aspect from the nativity scene. The story doesn't say that they went in the day that Jesus was born. It's actually the opposite. Because when we read a few things in the Bible, we have evidence to think that they actually came several months or even years later. We read verse 16 that says that Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi. He was furious and gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance to what the Magi had said. So Jesus was probably almost 2 when they came to visit him. There's another aspect that I should emphasize. In the book of Luke, it says that in the 40th day of life, Joseph and Mary brought Jesus to where? To the temple to present him. If they were persecuting the babies, would they be crazy enough to bring him to Jerusalem to present him in the temple? No. So this means that most likely this persecution and death began at least after 40 days that Jesus had been born. Right? And this is all a matter of fun facts, curiosity. I'm not saying that now the nativity scene is under curse. Of course not. But it's interesting to study history and learn a few things that we may have never thought about. But the fact is that the Son of God, the creator of the universe, came to this earth. Those wise men, pagan men, traveled many, many 100 miles to pay honor to the Son of God, the incarnated Christ. His life started with his earthly parents being victims of shame, which we won't have time this morning to discuss. Even though he deserved to be born in the wealthiest palace on the planet, Mary delivered him among animals. He was placed in a manger where animals used to eat. My question is, why did God, the Lord of the universe, decide to take human form and come to this dark and sinful world? Many right answers are possible, but I can give you the shortest and most meaningful answer with one word, love. He came because of love. He loves you. He loves me more than anything. This is why. And I'd like to close with an illustration that I read from a book written by Philip Yancey. He says that one day he decided to have an aquarium with fish, but not regular fish. Those fish needed salted water. And he says that this became way more complex than what he thought before. Because he almost had to become a master in chemistry, because there were a lot of things that he needed to take care of. The level of nitrites and the salt and this and that. And he took a long time taking care of those fish. But when he got to the aquarium, which he did at least 3 times a day to feed them, when he threw the food to them, their first reaction was to flee. They found the first shell to hide themselves from him, the one who was feeding them. And he says that he felt so frustrated with that, because he kind of wanted to show them his love. Come on, guys, I'm feeding you. Don't be afraid of me. I'm not going to eat you. I love you. And then he realized that the only really effective way to show his love to them was to become a fish and be able to speak the fish language and tell them, hey, don't be afraid, I like you. Unless this miracle didn't happen, everything he did to them made them be scared. He wanted to give them food, they got scared. He wanted to say a few nice things to them, they got scared. It's just like in our relationship with God sometimes. Sometimes God loves us, and He wants to do good things, say good things to us, but we just don't understand, because He's a big, great, infinite God, and we're just sinful, limited humans. So the only way, effective way He found was to become a man, which is far greater than a man becoming a fish. God became a man because He wanted to say to us, I love you. I love you. When you and your family celebrate Christmas in a couple days, remember that God became man to ensure that we wouldn't understand that He loves us more than anything. The greatest gift we can give to the baby Jesus, it's here. It's our heart. May we give our hearts to Jesus this season. Amen.